Hey everyone, welcome to this month's AP Town Hall. My name is Bryan Hall and I'm joined by John Talley. He's a global account manager for Ultimate Ears, and I'd just like to extend a warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be with us today.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. So I know that you have a little bit of a presentation that you want to give, but I would love to at least introduce you to the viewers at home, and maybe if you could have them, or if you could give them a little bit of a background into, how you got to this point in your life.
Yeah, for sure. Brian, thanks again. It was cool meeting you a couple weeks ago and kind of setting all this up. So thanks
Sure.
again for having me. Yeah, my name's John. I grew up here in Southern California. I myself am like a musician. I've been kind of in the music scene just locally here in Southern California for most of my life now. Uh, Grew up originally just playing in church and kind of learning the instrument of, playing percussion and drums just through the church on Sundays. And then uh, started really getting into it just outside of it and ended up kind of going to school for it in Hollywood, the Musicians Institute. Um, and yeah, been playing ever since in original rock bands, cover bands, you name it. Just kind of done touring and all of that throughout Southern uh, Orange County, San Diego, Los Angeles. And in my time of being a musician, I grew up in, the 90s, 2000s, and just ear protection wasn't really a thing for me and back then. So, probably 13, 14 years ago, I was just at that time where I had permanent tinnitus and my ears had some pretty heavy damage just from years of playing gigs, doing recordings, just playing loud in the garage, and uh, found this company, Ultimate Ears. It was right up the road from me in Irvine, California. And luckily, I was just a local customer and got to know David, who I still work till this day. And he's in sales, and it was just such a delightful interaction with the company. And, outside of just the great product that I received, it was just such a cool experience to be part of this team and or just see what the team does. And about 8 years ago started working for the company. So that's a brief history of just, you know why I'm a musician and what I've done in my life and kind of how I ended up here at Ultimate Ears. So, and I can go into more of that as we go through this presentation as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's fascinating how the very specific life events that we go through, lead us to the present day. And, being a musician, the fact that you were a customer of Ultimate Ears before you started working there, I think is fascinating as well. It really kind of speaks to how much you kind of believe in the product. Otherwise, you could have gone anywhere, And I
For
imagine being
sure.
a drummer as well, talk about not having ear protection. That is probably one of the most damaging, if not the most damaging instrument that you can play to your ears.
Of course. Yeah, it really pushes those SPLs. And especially if you're like me, I was practicing a lot in a small room growing up and just going to town on those drums. And that's the loudest way and the most damaging way you can do it is in a small room versus an outdoor open amphitheater. So um, yeah. And I mean, if there's further questions you have, would be happy to answer those. Or if you want to jump into the quick presentation I have to do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see the presentation, and then after it's done, we can have a chat about your ears some more. Talk about the ways in which working for Ultimate Ears is not only helped you, hear better, but also helped protect your ears as well. So, we'd love to see that presentation, and then we'll chat afterwards.
Cool. Sounds good. I'm going to share my screen here.
All right.
All right. So you can all see my screen.
Yes. No.
Awesome. Not yet. Let's see. How about now?
Can see it now.
Okay. See it now?
I think it's just taking a second to hook up.
Okay.
Okay, so go ahead and hit play, and then we'll go ahead and get started. I think it's kind of flashing up on the screen, so maybe if you hit play already. Okay, go ahead and skip to the next slide. See if that kicks it in.
So this is the second slide, and this is a giveaway we're doing. So we are happy to send over a blue microphone, which I'll get into why there's a microphone involved through this presentation as well.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, we're just having a little bit of issues with the video feed. It'll pop in and then pop out again. So I wonder if we can keep it here for a second.
Yeah,
Maybe we could, because right now it works great.
Yeah.
We might not be able to watch the video that you have,
Okay.
but if we go through this way, at least we can, see what you have available, and I think this works just as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, this is the blue microphone for anyone who wasn't able to see. It's just a Encore 100. It's a great, vocal microphone. You can use it for recording any real live acoustic instrument. So I'm happy to send that over after this presentation.
Awesome.
So I'm going to go through kind of the history of Ultimate Ears and where we started as a company, and see how we evolved over the years. But our company was started in 1995. The monitor engineer for Van Halen at the time was um, working with Alex Van Halen, the drummer, and he was just having such a hard time to hearing the band on their incredibly loud stages. And just like it says in this blurb, what Alex said to his monitor was, "These stage wedges aren't worth the price of my drumsticks." And what the monitor engineer said at the time was, "Well, let's take those monitors off the stage and put them into your ears." And that's literally where it started. And it's been a long journey for Ultimate Ears, but basically what we make is a custom molded in-ear that fits to your ear individually. So you go to an audiologist, ear doctor, and you can get a cast of your ear made, and then you ship it to our office, and we manufacture those into custom molded headphones that we sell several different sets, and they all have like different sonic differences, which I'm going to go through in this presentation. So started in 1995 on a tour bus, and that's where it all began. And now we're like the industry standard. We work with some of the world's top artists around the world. Um, it's so interesting. Me being a global account manager, my times can be kind of interesting with who I work with, because I do work with people in pretty much every continent. Um, I see Europe, I see the Asia market, I see Australia, even South Africa. So we have accounts and customers all over the world, and that's kind of been a fun thing, just to interact with some of the people we work with around the world and see like what they're up to. And we kind of partner with different holidays that are going on around the world, and work with different bands and artists. And that's been a really fun part of this job, is just seeing who's buying this product and what their application is for it. um, each pair of in-ear monitor is a result of hours of painstaking engineering and artsmanship. So it's a lot of engineering, but it's almost an art form that kind of goes into it, because in the manufacturing techniques, there's about 100 hands that end up touching each set of monitors. So it's really an art and engineering process that goes into production. Since 1995, we've built around 210,000 sets of monitors. So been around for a while, and love this product. And it's kind of stood the test of time with what it does for people. So um, in 2008, though, we were acquired by Logitech, and it's been so awesome just having that umbrella and that company be with us through how we grow and how we expand over the years. So Logitech, their primary bread and butter they sell is like webcams, keyboards, mice, any kind of home office accessory or anything for your home office. But they also own Ultimate Ears Pro. So that's kind of who we've been with since 2008. Um, So now I'm going to just go through each product. So like I was saying, we make these custom molded, so you can go to an ear doctor to get these built, or the ear impression built, and then you send it to an ear doctor. And what you then pay for, like the finished product, is really what sonically you want to hear. So we have different applications, we have different artists, we have different musicians who, maybe are a studio engineer or a production guy, and they want something with a headphone that doesn't produce any, extra bass or any added high-end response, and something that's pretty flat in the overall sound frequency response. There's others that push out a lot of bass. So, a bass guitar player or a drummer or DJ would maybe gravitate towards that kind of sound. Or we have others that are very detailed and have a lot of highs and crisp frequencies that stand out. So if you're a vocalist, or if you want to hear your click track or anything you're doing like that, there's so many applications, and we don't really have a strict sales tactic, because everyone hears things uniquely and differently. So just because this drummer hears, wants this kind of bass response, doesn't mean the next drummer will technically want that kind of response. So I'm going to start off with the UE5 model. This is our entry level model. There's two balanced armatures, and balanced armatures are just the individual speakers that are pushing sound out of these in-ears. So these have two balanced armatures. They're great, pretty simple. And, if it's like something that customers have that's budgetary constraint or anything like that, I will usually push them towards, or have them consider the UE5, as these are, entry level as far as price point, but also can deliver on kind of any kind of application. So great entry level model. They're pretty flat as far as the frequency response goes, but there is a little bit added kick in the low ends. So even a drummer or a DJ could for sure gravitate towards these. We'll go to the next one. UE6 Pro. This is the next one in our lineup. This is definitely catered towards drummers, bassists, anyone who's like doing electronic music. These have just a very noticeable bass response. So if you're doing any kind of application or performance that you notice you really are lacking those bass response, even if you EQ it a certain way, these would be something to for sure consider, especially as they're like an entry level in-ear monitor on our brochure. Bryan, what do you think? Do you have any questions or any concerns, any thoughts so far?
Yeah, I was actually just taking some notes. The uh, the product rundown is absolutely something I'm interested in. One thing I was going to touch back on it, but since it's so fresh, that conversation between Alex and his monitor engineer. I remember you told me a little bit about what that setup looked like. I know you guys have a fit kit, that helps you with the customization and the fit, but what did that first setup look like in Alex's ear? Because it definitely didn't look like what I'm seeing here in the UE6.
Yeah, it was. I know from just the history of it all that there was a lot of trial and error just to get it to uh, an applicable state. But basically, they went to an audiologist, ear doctor at the time, and they said, okay, we need you to make some molds with some, I believe they were using silicone back then, like they still do. But basically, they would just shoot this soft silicone material into the ear all the way to the second bend of the ear anatomy, and let that cure. It usually takes about 5 to 10 minutes. And once they got that good ear impression, basically they used that as the reference to make in-ear monitor for Alex back then. So that was like a process that was done then and hasn't changed much over the years. But the big thing for them back then was like, how do we get a speaker to produce enough sonic volume, to push something into the ear, but also be something that's good enough to where you're going to have the isolation from, having these custom molded uh, earphones in your ear. So that was something they had to do for quite a while, is find like a balanced armature. And that's actually was the end result. They found these tiny speakers that are, they actually were started as, hearing aids back in the day, and they still use those for hearing aids because they can push out such a high sound response. Um, and then, yeah, that's what they landed on because of that application, that just for the fact that they're so small, they can fit in these casts of, hard acrylic ears that we have and push out about 120 decibels of sound. So pretty
That's,
cool and neat
yeah.
experience.
And another thing I'm noticing, and looking at the Ultimate Ears products, is that I'm a huge believer in attention to detail. You can almost tell a lot about a company and the way a product is going to be as far as reliability just by the attention to detail, right? And
Yeah.
these are such tiny things, and
Hmm.
there's only so much that most people even attempt to do with regard to how they look. It seems as if you guys have put quite a bit of, quite a bit of that attention to detail into the aesthetics of the in-ears as well. They look really kind of they look cool, you know.
Yeah. And that's something that, has come with time, is given the fact that, I'm going to go into just the benefits of having the hearing preservation and hearing protection from these. Um, now the demand has become, these are almost like a fashion statement. And especially in the music industry, uh, people love the cosmetics. They love, the endless possibilities you can do as far as the cosmetic customizations, that availabilities that we have. So, like what we're looking at on the screen here is actual carbon fiber. It's not like a printed, piece of paper. That's an actual material that they cut out at our office, and hand fit to, whoever's ears those were. So those are some of the cool products we can make, or just put on the in-ears themselves, is, special materials. People love doing, like, pictures of their dogs or their babies or their kids. Like, sky's the limit as far as customization. And that's also a big part of my job, is, I feel like I'm also part of the quality assurance of making sure if I get this order of, from a large band in, Europe, for example, and maybe there's language barriers or whatever. It's my job to ensure, here's what you're getting. You're going to spend X amount of dollars on this large order of in-ears that, we're going to ship back to you. And, this person might want a blue in-ears and this person might want red ears, but the logistics and making sure that happens from A to Z is, crucial for our whole team, and, delivering an excellent product. So, um, yeah, I'll show you guys just while we're on that topic. These are some in-ear monitors, just an example of some physical ones you can see on camera. I know it's not in person, but here's just a couple, and hopefully my camera can pick them up. That's an orange one. Here's a green one. Let's see if my camera will pick it. So those are hand cut. You can put your initials, you can put pictures, but that's just an example of kind of what the product looks like. And I know, apologies, it's on just a camera, but um, yeah, they're really, really cool. And like you said, I was a customer before I even worked here, and I've been a large advocate for for the company, since before I even worked here. So it's really cool to work for a company that I'm also just a serious advocate for. So.
Gotcha. Okay.
Um,
Cool. Cool. So yeah, I guess let's run through some of these other products that you guys offer, and then carry on with the presentation. I don't know if the live feed from your camera is coming through, so we'll just
okay.
stick with what's on your presentation for now.
Yeah, no worries.
Perfect.
So the next one's the UE7, and there's another example of, like, a design that we've done over the years. But as far as the sonic difference of the UE7, this is a lot of mid-range, lots of high-end details. So, usually a singer, guitar player, someone like that nature will gravitate towards these. I have seen these as like a reference NS10. Some people have compared these to them. They are somewhat flat, but then they do have a lot of mids and highs. So those do kind of stick out with these. But one of our number one selling products, and one of our first products that is about 25 years old. So this is the same sonic recipe we created many, many years ago, and it's something that hasn't changed and kind of stood the test of time. So for sure, one of our number one selling products here. Next is the Reference Remastered. This was, designed in conjunction with Capitol Studios in Hollywood. So they actually helped create the sound signature of these monitors. So we didn't have anything that was, actually engineered and dedicated to a production engineer, anyone in that world. So that, the demand was there, and we went straight to Capitol Studios and said, can you guys help us design this sound frequency response? And obviously they did. And these have also been around for, I think close to a decade now. But again, these are very organic, kind of flat in their overall response, but not lacking in any of the frequencies. So great for anyone in the program over there doing like engineering or mixing, mastering, anything of that nature. So the next one is the UE11. These just have very full bass response, kind of higher up in the food chain if you want to compare as far as and overall sound uh, quality of the monitors. So these have 4 balanced armatures per side, and overall just very, very full bass response. So another one of the older products that has been around for several decades now, and very much have stood the test of time. That's one of my favorite faceplates that we offer. This is an actual wooden faceplate. I can't remember the actual wood that's cut here, but it's really cool to see that laser cutter actually cut a faceplate that's fit to one person.
Have you found that the different faceplates affect the quality of the audio, the frequency response, that sort of thing? Because I know with over ears and open headphones, the encasement, there's headphones that have like wooden cases as well, and they tend to help with transduction.
Yeah. In our manufacturing processes, we have it's called a boot. So it's basically just a small rubber holder that's kind of a boot that holds the balanced armatures. And I think that's where, I don't know if it's dampening, but that's kind of what holds and keeps everything housed and keeps the sonic frequency response accurate and consistent. So, and to my knowledge, just because of that, having those uh, armatures encased like that, you can pretty much do anything you want with faceplates, and it shouldn't do anything to the sound response. So,
Gotcha.
it's like kind of the opposite of the over the years, I think, because like the over the years, it's like out here, but everything's on the inside. So they start from where the actual balanced armature is inside the monitor. So kind of interesting.
And
Um,
I know one of the problems with online retail, especially when it comes to audio, is that you can't really try before you buy.
mhm.
One of the ways that you can kind of offset that, I suppose, is being able to look at frequency response plots and that sort of thing. Are frequency response plots available online? Can you compare and contrast depending on what you might be looking for in an in-ear?
Um, we can talk shop as far as what every monitor does as far as the response goes, but as far as sharing the actual audio graphs, like what these output,
Hmm.
our production team usually kind of keeps that, internal, mainly just because it's kind of their secret sauce, if you want to think of it that way, is like all the cooks in the kitchen,
Yeah.
making their secret sauce. But yeah, for sure. Like, and that's something that's a function of my role that I do is, I try and educate all of our artists and customers as well as I can. And that's our whole team does that as well, just to give them the proper understanding as far as what might be applicable to, what they're doing. So, um, yeah. And we also have a dealer network around the world. So we do have representatives who work for the company, and they are in pretty much every major city around the world. Um, and a lot of those will have like a universal fitting demo monitor. So
Okay.
kind of like the ones I showed you. they're not custom. They actually, you take a foam tip and fit it on the in-ear monitor, and then you can actually hear the sonic differences. So that's also something we have pretty worldwide in any of the major cities, I will say.
Gotcha.
Um, so
Perfect.
yeah, the next one's the UE18. These are, I think, another definite, if you're doing production, mixing work, any kind of live sound, they do have, pretty full bass, mids, and highs, pretty enhanced, but it's pretty balanced. So it's something you could use in a mixing world, because it's nothing that is like a Beats headphone that's just like way too, enriched with the bass or highs. It's pretty organic still as far as the sound response goes. Um, Next one up is the UE Live. These were created about 4 or 5 years ago, so somewhat of a newer product. These have 8 balanced armatures per side, which is sometimes I just don't understand how they fit these all in there. But very, very big, boomy, lots of bass, lots of highs. So it's like nothing really gets compromised, even though there's lots of noise happening in those. But a lot of the big acts right now, like, I'm working with Green Day, a couple other ones just to name out: Ed Sheeran, Usher, Jason Mraz, Steely Dan, John Fogerty, August Burns Red. A lot of big names like that tend to kind of gravitate towards these UE lives, just because they've got such a full response. And if you get in you're in a arena or just any kind of stadium tour that has, the full, front of house mixer with the in-ear mixer, and you've got all the luxuries, a lot of guys tend to gravitate towards these. So great product, and it's for how new it is, it's doing really well for us. But the next one's even crazier, because we just launched it about 3 months ago, and when I said there's 8 drivers per side, I was like, when I heard they were doing 8, I was, kind of in shock. But the new one is the UEPremier. This was launched in February. It has 21 drivers per side, so 21 speakers pushing out sound. It's like an explosion, but in a good way. Just a huge, very full, large response. I believe it's 120 to 130 decibels, so these can actually do some serious damage to your ear, which is going to be the next avenue I kind of transition into here. But yeah, UEPremier has been very, very new, only a couple months old, but very large, and very lot of customers have been inquiring about it, so it's starting to sell really well for us. So we'll
100.
go right ahead here.
Sorry, I was just going
What
to
was
say
that?
120 dB is that's insane. It's one of those just because you can doesn't mean you should
Yeah.
scenarios, right?
And I remember we were talking a couple weeks ago, and it was almost like a question of like, yeah, it can do 120, but almost like why? But something I kind of tell our customers, it's kind of like having a Corvette. A lot of 90% of this, I won't even say 90. Most roads you're not going to be able to drive 200 miles an hour on. At most you're going to get to 80 miles an hour, and that's kind of the luxury of having these products, is they can go 200 miles an hour, but when you're using them only going 70 miles an hour, it's going to be very excellent product and excellent sound response. You'll really notice the like very clear, concise detail of the audio frequency response. So that's kind of a cool comparison, because when I started learning about these, I was like, why would you want to hear a gunshot go off in your ear? That seems like insane. And once that was kind of introduced, like a Corvette, you don't really drive a Corvette pedal to the metal every day or ever really. It really made sense to me and kind of stuck with me over the years. So
Yeah.
um,
I thought that was interesting, an interesting analogy for sure. Because the way I was looking at it is, if you have a max level of, let's say, 100 dB, every once in a while you're going to have to turn it up to hear some detail, some level changes, that sort of thing. And if you do that and the max level is 100 dB, you're going to start getting closer and closer to clipping much sooner. So you're going to get a degradation of signal, quality of signal. So having that extra level allows you to push the detail a little bit more for short periods of time without losing quality. So I think it's great. 21 drivers is mind blowing.
Yeah, yeah, and it's definitely a challenge as far as production goes, because given this is a custom handmade product, that person who has small ears, how are you going to fit all of these speakers into that ear like we're looking at? And we have our ways and our techniques in how to do that. So it's most of the time we can, but yeah, there are those ears that are almost too small, and we have to have those conversations of like, maybe consider a different monitor that has less drivers. And we're happy to work with the artist on that in those cases. um, but yeah, going back to, I'm going to start venturing into hearing protection and, why these are so applicable to that. Before I do, though, this is like one last feature that's kind of interesting about, our monitors and what you can do to them. It's an ambient feature. So a lot of people, whether it's a musician on stage or a guy who just wears these as actual headphones to listen to music, or you name it, doesn't really matter what the application is. Sometimes people have these in and it cuts too much sound and you can't really hear enough. So we have this feature and developed this feature called the ambient feature. It's essentially just a hole that's drilled through the bottom of the monitor. I don't know if you can see on my screen, um, but basically there's a hole that goes through and it lets in about 10 to 12 decibels of sound. So when you have the monitors in, you are reducing the sound by 26 decibels. But if you have the ambient plug removed, so if you remove this plug, then it's going to let in about 10 decibels. So kind of cool. You definitely, it varies by application and who actually would be someone that would, benefit from this versus someone who, like a drummer like myself. I don't have the ambient feature because I want as much protection as I can get. But someone like a singer on a stage and who might be interacting with a crowd or anything like that nature can have their in-ears, you know, inserted and in use, but also have those ambient plugs opened and, be able to hear what's going on the stage. So kind of a cool feature that sometimes customers like, what is that? Or what is, how does that work? So um, yeah, that's the ambient feature. Um, and that kind of segues into hearing protection. And that's something I'm really passionate about with, my role here in Ultimate Ears. And it's part of my story and how I ended up getting these products before I even worked here was I was having tinnitus, and I do have tinnitus. And um, the noise and loud SPLs of many years of performing and practicing and all that really did a toll and took a toll on my ears. And, I have to sleep at the sound machine every night now, and um, have like a constant ring that just, it doesn't really go away. So I'm a huge advocate for UE, but also for the reason that these do give hearing protection outside of just the great sonic output that they perform with. So, um, I'll just say that like an average concert that you go to is going to be anywhere from like 90 to 125 decibels. And, you know, I've heard it's around 80 decibels and louder that hearing damage can start. So obviously, if you're at, one of those metal concerts or anything like that, it's probably around the 120 decibel mark. So you're already just clearly damaging your ears. And even if you're a performer doing that and you're performing, in a metal band, you're probably in that, 110, 130 decibel area. And if you have our product, if you're at that 120, 110 mark, if you have our product in your ears, you're already cutting it by about 26 decibels. So it's not going to fully protect, but at the same time, it's going to preserve your hearing for the long term, like it has for me. Um, when I came and got my first set about 13 years ago, I started wearing them and I haven't really stopped. Doesn't matter if I'm practicing, performing, recording, anything. I always have these in ears with me just for the hearing protection. And for sure, my tinnitus has pretty much just paused and just stayed level since then. So it's kind of a cool story just to see like, yeah, this is a great product that will really help you in performance, but hearing protection and having that is also part of that. So it's kind of a best of both worlds. Like you get all those harsh, loud cymbals or loud noises kind of reduced in your ear, almost like when you stick your fingers in your ears. But then you can have the control of like, oh, I want to be able to hear the violin that's 50 feet away from me. It's being mic'd up, and I can control that and have it in my ear. So uh, that's kind of you know a big reason why we really try and educate students and artists around the world as on our product is just the overall preservation and what these can do for the long term of your life with these. So
Yeah.
um,
I think that's why events like this are so important. Why education is so important because, it almost seems like an oxymoron using in-ear headphones essentially for hearing protection, and it doesn't really make sense because headphones get such a bad rap with regard to hearing loss over time. Everybody thinks every teenager is going to experience hearing loss because of their constant use of AirPods and that sort of thing, and maybe they're right. But in this particular case, if you can isolate the sounds outside of your head, essentially, and block those out, you don't have to have the audio as loud to be able to work efficiently. So if you can keep it at around 85 dB, you can work at those levels for 16 hours before suffering permanent hearing damage. But
totally.
it reduces drastically as you go up. So if you're forced to work at like 90 dB, because you don't have sound isolation. You can only work for 8 hours before suffering permanent hearing damage. And then, obviously, if you go up to 100, you're talking about, a matter of a couple of hours or less. And at 120, forget about it. If you're not wearing any hearing protection at all, as you know, it's a matter of minutes, if not instantaneously. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's fascinating.
for sure. Yeah, and I it's interesting, like doing any kind of the production work that I've done on the side as well too. Just being able to have the amount of reduction and the accuracy from these monitors, I find I can work for longer periods because I have the sound level down, but I could still hear, maybe it's a string part I've recorded or whatever, and it's something that I'd probably have to turn some monitors up on just to hear. But because these are right in my head, you can almost turn down to like the 50, 60 dB level, and you can totally hear everything you need. So really cool.
Awesome.
Moving along here. So now I'm just switching gears. Ultimate Ears, like I said, we're owned by Logitech, so there are other consumer products we sell. The first one in the middle here is the earplugs. So we make custom earplugs. There's no balanced armatures or speakers pushing any sound out. It's just for ear protection. So even if you just are in a loud space and you don't need to hear an audio response, I always suggest just get these because you're just going to save your ears for the long term. And they're really comfortable. They're made out of a soft silicone, so they're a little bit more giving than the hard acrylic that the in-ears are made out of. Um, and then Logitech also owns Blue microphones. They make like those XLR microphones as well as these USB microphones, which are great for Zooming or any kind of work from home activities or even recording. Um, we also have the UE Fits. So those are like just everyday, kind of like an Apple AirPod, but when we ship them to you, they are soft silicone around the actual in-ear, and you can mold them using our Ultimate Ears app to your ear. So it's very similar to how our in-ears are made, uh, but it's made just for like a consumer who wants to listen to music while walking the dog or working out in that nature. Um, and then right next to them are the UE drops, very similar, but they're printed like with a 3D printer with hard acrylic and also, you know, catered towards that end user. And then lastly, it's the UE booms. So these are just like our waterproof speakers you can bring to the lake when you're on the boat. Just play any of your music, and there's different sizes, and they're pretty much all waterproof and can be used in any application in that nature. So Um, yeah, that's pretty much everything I had, but I'd love to, if there's questions that you have or anything you want to discuss or anything that we want to hit on, I would be happy to go through that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was a pretty comprehensive presentation. Kind of really gave me a lot to go on as far as what the company's about, the products you offer. So that's great. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about the process for getting fitted
Hmm.
for the right size for your ears, and then what is the process for once you get the in-ears made and you get them shipped to you and you try them out and they're not quite right. Now that you've got them custom made, can you send them back and get new ones, or how does that work as well?
Yeah, so I'll start with just the, beginning stages of, manufacturing and production. When you are, first becoming a customer and artist with us, first stage is just to go to an audiologist ear doctor. So that's, they're in any city, pretty much nationally and internationally, there's an audiologist ear doctor around the corner. We usually try and have the customer take a PDF document with them to this ear doctor that has all of our, recommendations as far as the material that's used. But basically, you just go and they will shoot some silicone impression material into your ear that will cure after about 5 minutes. And once you have your complete set of impressions, you just mail them to our office in Irvine. That's where we will scan them into our system with the 3D scanner. So then they're saved as like a specific file, and then that's how we start the manufacturing production stages. As far as when you receive the in-ears, let's say you buy some in-ears, you go to the ear doctor and you get the casts made and you ship them to us. Usually takes about 8 to 10 business days to manufacture the product. After that 10-day, we'll ship them to you. And let's say you receive them and it's not fitting well, or you have a pain in the top part of your ear, or they look kind of big and my ears are a lot smaller because we get those questions from time to time. We have different services and fit adjustment techniques that we can do and offer to the customer. So if they feel like it's comfortable, but maybe if you just shaved off a little bit, we have the techniques and tools available in our Irvine office to where if you ship them back to us, we would use some specific tools and per the artist or customer, your instruction, like, yeah, it just feels like it's sore on the bottom part of my ear.
Mm.
Then we can kind of take that note and make the altercations to the in-ear monitor. If by chance there's a case where, we do that whole service for the customer, ship it back again, and they're still like, yeah, it just doesn't feel right, then we kind of weigh the situation. Do we want to try and do a remake and have you maybe go get another set of ear impressions made? We'll have the first ones already in hand in Irvine. We can kind of compare apples to apples and see, like, what's going on with this ear anatomy, because every ear shape is different, and that's kind of the art form in how we manufacture these is, this person's got really small ears, how are we going to do this? And that's how our technicians kind of take each case. And then there's obviously the bigger ear, which is a little bit easier because you can fit as many drivers in there as possible. um, but yeah, we really stand by our product and our customer service, and are always there and standing by that. So, we always are willing and able to work with the customer to ensure that they are comfortable. Because I know when I first bought mine, it was probably like 5 days or even longer, about a week or so, that they were pretty sore. I was wearing them for long periods of time and I was just like, I'm not sure. But then after about 2 weeks, all pain was gone. And, I was taking flights across the country and doing a lot of hours of performances and had them in. And still to this day, I have those in-ear monitors and they work great. So, yeah.
I suppose a lot of that headache can be mitigated by just making sure that the consumer follows the directions, right? Because
Yeah.
that could be a headache getting it fitted, but not quite the way that you need it to be fitted, and then you have to send it back, be like, that's not correct, and they have to wait another 10 days or however long before they can get it. So,
Yeah, for sure. We have a pretty rigid set of instructions that we send out, and we have it available on our website in case, a customer just goes through the process without asking questions or, working with a rep like myself. We try to make, everything readily available to the customer. But yeah, there are those cases where, a customer has a ear that's the size of the quarter, but they send us an impression the size of a raisin, and we're like, yeah, we need more material, so we can get as much detail of your ear as possible. So,
Gotcha.
um, but yeah, we're more than willing and happy to work with the customer in those cases where if there's like something that comes up, we can work with them through that.
Cool.
So.
By the way, if any people watching have any questions, please feel free to type that in the chat. One question I did want to ask you, and it's something that we talked about a little bit last time we chatted. I know that the origin of these things is basically the hearing aid technology, and I know that with modern hearing aids, you're able to open up an app, and there's an EQ in there, and you can custom make your frequency response based on what your personal listening experience is or needs are. Can you explain why that wouldn't necessarily be an optimal thing for an engineer to be able to do, and
Yeah.
what sort of limitations there are regarding personalized frequency response outputs?
Yeah. So we had a product several years ago called the personal reference monitor where you could do that. You could tune these by hand. So, if you had some hearing damage just on one side of your head first, if your left side went out or just is kind of reduced due to some kind of incident, um, that was a product that was kind of applicable to that person. But the in those cases, we had to create a machine really that you could do yourself as far as equalizing goes. And just to get that machine, distributed worldwide, started to become a challenge because it was very heavy from my remembering back in the day. Um, and, just because you ship something to Los Angeles doesn't mean someone in Chula Vista, California can't, just drive right up, which is 3 hours away. So that became kind of tricky to maneuver through. But that's kind of why we ended up getting rid of that product. But we ventured out and started creating more products on our lineup. So you saw each product card that I explained, like the 5, 6, 7, reference 11, 18 live and Premiere. All those products have a very individual sound response. So if a customer comes to us, saying, "Hey, this is what I do as a musician, or this is what I do as a producer," in 99% of the time, we can say, "Well, this is what we've seen in our time of selling the products as far as who gravitates towards what." Um, and in those cases, it's usually a happy customer 99% of the time. So,
Awesome.
um, yeah, it's it's definitely a great product, and for sure stand by it.
Cool.
So
Awesome. And I think we actually have a question from one of our viewers.
Someone on the chat was asking, how do they plug in? Is it like headphones, or what is the connection to the actual monitors, the in-ear monitor?
yeah, so if you get custom in-ear monitors with us, a part of the selling process or the buying process is you can select your cable. So you can get either a 50-inch cable or a 64-inch cable. You can get either a black one, which is kind of hard to see, but it's here, or silver one. So 50 or 64, and then it's just an 1/8 inch connection. So just a general headphone cable. Um, if you're using these for mixing, I mean, most people these days can do any kind of audio production on an Apple computer and plug right into the computer, and you're good to go. But if you have an interface, just get one of those 1/4 inch adapters, and you can use that instead of your big studio monitors or um, whatever device you were using for output. And then, a lot of our live guys usually have like the wireless packs that they plug those into, which is just so you can get up and walk around and just be wireless to the actual receiver unit. But yeah, it's just an 1/8 inch general connection. So
Awesome. I appreciate
To
that.
follow up real quick.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
What about connecting to the actual in-ear device? How does the cable go into that?
yeah, and I'm happy to show that. So it's a IP67 certified connection. So that means From my understanding, you can sweat and, water can be around it, but I would not suggest jumping in a pool and going swimming with these. But that's the connection. It's called IPX. So it's actually removable. So you can remove the cable from the in-ear monitor. So that's really cool because sometimes, for a music performer, if a cable goes out or if it gets damaged, someone runs into you, if you step on it, or sky's the limit as far as what has happened over the years. But that's a really cool option just to be able to remove it. You can purchase new ones. And we also sell a Bluetooth cable that's, attachable and detachable like these ones. So, if you want to use these just for working out and walking the dog or anything like that, you can just plug it right into the in-ear monitor, and then that connects to your phone and your wireless. So another cool, feature that we have and sell from our lineup.
I think that's that's an important addition, right? Carrying 64 feet of cable when you're on the plane, trying to listen to Dr. Dre or whatever could be a problem.
Yeah, for sure. And then also part of the buying process too is you get a custom case. So it'll say our company name, and then it says engraved for, handcrafted for. If you want to put your name, John Talley or whoever on the case, you can do that, which is kind of cool. A lot of guys put their phone number. So if, by chance they're out on the road and they get lost, at least there's a number to call. So that's kind of fun. You get something with your name printed on there, and you can also customize the in-ears as far as cosmetics go all day long. So
awesome.
Pretty cool.
Cool. Yeah. So we need to, we're coming up on the hour, so we need to wrap things up. I did want to thank the person who asked the question. You were offering, you said you were going to be giving away a blue microphone. Maybe we could give it away to the person who asked the question. What do you think?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Let's do that.
Cool. That would be great. John, if you could take that person's name down, that would be awesome. So yeah, John, listen, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come and chat with the students about Ultimate Ears and a little bit about you and your background, and the product seems amazing. So I really appreciate it. Very grateful.
Yeah, for sure, Brian. It was great. It was great chatting with you before, and today was great. And thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Perfect. Yeah. Cool. All right, guys.
See you later.
For everyone watching at home, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next month. Bye.
Bye, Brian.